Welcome to Beer and Business. You found the best podcast for entrepreneurs. We serve crafty business knowledge, comedy, and yes, beer. And now it's time for our hosts. If he were to pat you on the back, you'd list it on your resume. It's Jake Mullins. And his beer never gets warm. It just sits there, staying frosty, waiting for him. Mr. John Winnie. And if you spell his name in Scrabble, you automatically win. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Darren Flanagan.
Oh my goodness, we are live, Darren.
Let's do it.
We've done it again.
Woohoo.
Folks, welcome back to the Beer and Business Podcast. Today we've got a really special one for you. We are super excited. Joining us all the way from Denmark is Morten Bonde. I have said it correctly in your native tongue. Is that right?
That was perfect. Yep.
Yes.
Close enough.
But,
He's
but
giving
as
you
us,
credit.
But as
Close
us less sophisticated Americans would say, Bond. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Morten Bonde, and you've got an amazing story. Morten, you have gone blind, and you wrote a book that I'm really interested to get into, and a lot of fascinating ground to cover with you. But before we get into you, we've got something a little bit more important to talk about, and that is the beer that we're drinking, the official beer of the Beer and Business Podcast.
Really?
Yeah, sorry.
Way to bring on a guest and make him feel good, Jake.
I know. Morten, we are drinking Line Creek, the official beer of the Beer and Business Podcast. And today, Darren, what did they give us?
Today, the first one we're drinking is called Beer of Service. So it's a pale lager. Every six-pack you buy of this, $1 is donated to the Rotary Club. So I'll tell you what, it's got a nice caramel color.
It does, and half of mine disappeared. I don't know what happened. It must have been...
But if you like a good just lager...
Yeah, it's
a good
actually
beer.
really nice. It's simple, which is good, because sometimes, craft beer can get a little bit too complicated, and this one is really nice.
What did
Hits the
Jake
mark.
say last week about what does the word lager mean?
I don't remember. What did he say?
Just put it on the shelf or to store it or something.
Yeah,
It's
something like that.
It doesn't really...
Yeah, well, this is good. It's a really good beer. It's got nice flavor. It's like a Budweiser, only with flavor.
Yeah, but
Good flavor.
better.
Yes.
So
And Morten, are you having a beer with us?
Well, yeah, I have picked a Danish Tuborg Classic.
Tuborg.
I've never
from
had
a
that.
can. It's yeah, as it says, it's a classic, and everyone in Denmark enjoy this beer. So I'll open it.
Cheers.
There we
Did
go.
you hear that?
Prost.
So what do you say in Denmark? Do you guys clink glasses and say something?
Yep.
What do you
Yep.
say?
We say skål.
Skål. Ah, well,
Skål.
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 And
Yeah.
as we say here in the States,
Down the hatch.
pretty much whatever, but usually cheers.
Cheers. Prost.
Cheers.
Yeah, we
that,
appreciate
that
you
worked
coming on.
too.
Oh, look at
Ooh,
that.
look at that. That's a
Yeah.
nice color on that.
Nice color. Yeah.
You know, this is getting... our guests, the good thing is they're drinking beer that's as good of quality as we're drinking. So
Well, and we've had so many folks from Europe on recently, and they're always drinking these, beers with tons of history and culture behind them, which I think is really cool. But before we move on, folks, we want to ask you, support the brewery, Line Creek. All you got to do is buy their delicious beer, or go to the brewery, and even better, come and see us. So,
it's going to be fun.
yeah, September 8th, we're having another business networking event. 4 to 6. We may actually change the time. We've been asked to extend it a little bit, so we may go a little bit later than 6 o'clock. So stay tuned. But we'd love to see you come out to the brewery. There's no better way to talk business than over a delicious craft beer. I mean,
Or a
am I
seltzer.
wrong? Or a seltzer, yeah, if
They
you're into
serve both.
seltzers.
Yep.
They got those too.
I'm all
But
for
yeah,
it.
come see us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Every month we've got some folks that are kind of regulars at the events that come, and then we're always meeting new people. So don't go to boring business networking events. That's just dumb.
Right.
Yeah, don't do that. So, Morten, thank you so much for coming on the show. I knew immediately when I saw your story that we wanted to get you on the show. And it was funny. So for those of you watching or listening, when we do an interview, before we do the interview, we actually meet with somebody to talk to them about the podcast and make sure that they can, sign a release, not to sue us over Darren's, negative comments or
Fabulous jokes,
so, but
or just being around me.
yeah, exactly. Please don't put me on the restraining order, just Darren. But no, we meet before we do the podcast, and what struck me is, it's one of those things where when we talk about the senses, it's very easy for us to take them for granted. And you said something that just hit me like a ton of bricks, and it made me realize how much I do take for granted and how much I don't understand what you've gone through. And that was, we were getting ready to start the discussion, and you said, "Oh, I don't know where I put my coffee." And I thought to myself, oh my God, I put stuff down and can't find it all the time. Imagine doing it and I can't see. And it was one of those things, Morten, where I was like, man, yeah, there's just a whole world there that I don't understand. So really appreciate you sharing this with us. Why don't you start from the beginning? When did you realize that you were having a problem with your vision, and how did that come about for you?
Well, let me just start by a little demonstration. I have my camera on. So imagine, this is actually how I see. So I have a little bit of vision at the center, and then I have to move around with my eyes, like scanning, constantly scanning to sort of get an overview. That's strange for people to understand, because when they look at me, I look them straight in the eye. I keep eye contact and I can see that they're doing something, but in reality, I only see that little portion of a person, like the eye or the nose or the mouth. So that is a little bit tricky, because then people don't realize that I'm legally blind, which means that I'm not totally blind, but almost have a vision that is not really functional and practical. And they should call it practically blind instead of yeah.
It's like Darren, practically stupid.
For the people that are listening, what Morten just gave us was, when he put his hand up to the camera, basically your field of vision is about the size of a dime. So if you put a dime in a circle and put that up to your eye, that's about all you can see. I guess you were saying you have a field of vision of about 4 degrees.
Yeah.
And the average person has a field of vision of 20 degrees. And
well, actually, they have all the way out, so 180 degrees, because you can see out in the peripheral, you can sense things. So and I actually can too. So I imagine I have a donut in front of my eyes, because there's some vision going on out on the peripherals, and then there's this donut in front of me that is not blind as such. It's flickering lights. So imagine if you get up very quickly from your chair, and you can get this sort of for a moment it's just flickering lights, and that's what I have all the time with this little hole in the middle.
You have it called retinitis pigmentosa. Is that the name of it?
Yeah, that's what
Did
it's
I say
called.
it
Yeah,
correctly. So,
retinitis
and then-
pigmentosa.
You can say the complicated word better than you can say his last name, which is 2 syllables.
I know. Well,
No, you did. I think you did fine.
So the cells in the retina, the vision cells in the retina, are dying one at a time, basically. And so when did that, as Jake said, when did that start for you?
Well, I think it started when I was born, probably. But it's when you lose sight gradually, and in the peripheral area of your vision, you don't notice it until one day I was 29. It was back in 2002, and I was invited to a game of badminton, which in Denmark is a huge thing. I think where you live, it's a silly beach thing, but here it's really
Please tell
pro.
me it's silly in Denmark too, or do you guys face paint and stuff and get really serious?
It's an Olympic sport.
Yeah. Oh, we
is.
Victor Axelsen, he just won the Olympic gold this year. So here we are really good at playing that, and I played that as a boy, and when I was 16, I sort of started getting interested in other things.
Ooh, liquid things.
Like the beer there.
Yeah.
And party, and then I had a long pause for 10, 12 years, and I was invited back on the course, and I was playing this game, and in the middle of I was about to punch the winner punch, and then the ball just disappeared in thin air, and then it just landed next to me, and I was what was going on there, and I couldn't understand what was going on, and then I visited an ophthalmologist, and he looked at my vision, and he said, well, it doesn't seem to be anything wrong. Yeah, I could see the letters very clearly, so no problem there. And I went back and forth to different ophthalmologists, and I was sent to an area. It's in Copenhagen, where they look at more rare eye diseases, and they told me that Morten, you have a rare genetic eye disorder that will make you go blind. Have a good life.
Oh my gosh! So how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 29. I had just started working in the advertising industry, and my wife and we had plans for getting kids, and we were, we just started out the process of getting our new house built, and that came just very inconvenient, that information that I was going to lose sight at some point in the future. So,
well, I can't imagine a convenient time ever to get that news. I
No,
mean, that's just
no.
horrible.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself kind of going into a little downward spiral, or
Yeah, what was it?
go into a dark place at that point when you found out that news, or were you like, nah, it's all right, I'll figure it out?
It's of course, I think it's been with me since, of course. So, you can never really forget it, but at that point it wasn't really a huge problem. It was just and people were advising me to seek counsel and prepare for it. But I said to myself, no, let's just continue life, as then we'll deal with it when it becomes a problem at some point in the future. So that was the strategy, just to bury it, put it in a closet, and throw away the key.
So you said you were an art director at that
Yep.
time for advertising or something, and so now you get news that you're losing your sight. As an art
Which is
director,
kind of important for an art
to be an art
director.
director.
Yeah, that was. I think I was stunned. I was just paralyzed by that information, because the only thing I wanted to be was an art director. I actually started out being just I was trained as a sales consultant, and I was at the age of 26 when I realized, this is not making me happy. So I started all over, and I got, this degree, and I started working, and then I was told I was going to lose sight. So that was just too much. So I said, no, it's not going to be a problem, right?
So were you like in denial when
Yeah,
you found out, like, oh, this isn't happening to me, it's going to be okay?
I think a little bit of everything, because I just couldn't see a brilliant career ahead of me if I was telling people that I was going to lose sight. So I was honest about having some issues and some challenges with my vision, but I think mostly I just kept it to myself and just dealt with it, and I found ways to just deal with it in everyday life.
So I imagine at some point this started to hit you, right? So as the disease progressed and your eyesight deteriorated, was there a point when you're like, I can't outrun this, and it really started to weigh heavy on you and change your perspective on life?
Yeah, I think to around 2014, I wasn't really visiting the ophthalmologist, annually. I was supposed to go there to get a checkup, and they would, for the first couple of years, every time I went there, they were looking at me and they said, yeah, you lost a little more of your sight. We can't help you. See you next year. So, and then there was this point where I remember the last time when I went to the ophthalmologist was when I asked him, frankly, I said, how about driving? Because I was driving, and at that point it wasn't really, I think it wasn't at a point where it was illegal or where I should have, put down the license. But I was asking him, and he said, I don't know if he was like, and then I just, unconsciously never went there again because I couldn't.
It's like, when you park in your front yard, maybe that's the time to stop driving.
Exactly. But it's strange because I created this way of dealing with this by just scanning, everything all the time. So imagine that you have this flashlight, and you just, wave it around, and then you eventually, you kind of scanned everything around you, and your brain kind of picks it up, and it says, well, here's the image, and you know where things are. And so that was a practical way for me to just, be as normal as possible. But when he said that, I didn't make the appointment next year and next year and next year until around 14, where I started, experiencing problems. There was like burnout and stress all the time, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then at the end, I think at the end, or in the mid of 16, the body just shut down completely. Like, no more. I don't want to, I was working like, a lot, and I had a family, I had 2 kids, and with busy life, and I couldn't understand what was going on. I was just burned out, and that was where I started, stopping and looking at what's actually going on here.
So is that about the time you hit rock bottom?
Yeah, that was it. I actually at that point suffered from stress and also depression because I was so frustrated because I wanted to work. I loved doing what I'm doing, and there's something just impeding or stopping me, and I couldn't figure it out what it was, strangely enough.
Well, you kind of losing your eyesight. I mean, let's start there.
Yeah, it was not in my, it was not in my mind that had anything to do with the situation I was in. That's how strange the mind works. Like,
isn't that funny, man?
It just compartmentalized it and put it over in this. Let's just put it over here and close the door, and we'll forget about it. And then that door cracked open on you, and it started coming out.
Exactly.
It's so funny you say that, man, because in a case like this, it seems so obvious that would be the catalyst for all this stuff that you're dealing with. But so often, this is why people get stuck. They think they're mad about something, or they think that they're frustrated or sad about one thing, but that may just be like one little catalyst, and there's all these things that happen before it that we don't link to how we feel in that particular moment. And it's funny how the mind can just disassociate and screw with you. It's screwing with you, like, well, you're upset about this other thing, but in reality, it's something else. And if we just could connect those dots in our own brains, and yeah, man, that's
or it's
crazy.
The fact that he pissed off his wife, and she got mad, and she rearranged some of the furniture, and he started banging into things just to get even with it. But,
does she do that to you when she gets pissed at you? Does she move your stuff?
No, she's actually pretty awesome and helpful. But it was actually her that made me stop, because we were on a vacation in Greece, Crete, the island, wonderful island, and everything there is sort of white marble, sunlight, heavy sunlight, and the hotel we were living on was like, there were stairs all everywhere, like, it was so difficult to see at that place. But at that point, I was just dealing with it. But she kind of observed me, and because I was out of my normal
comfort zone.
Exactly, and I wasn't, I didn't know that 6 steps, and then there's a little step, and then like 4 steps up, and like I have all those things in my head, in my surroundings where I'm sort of familiar, but she could observe me, and she said when we came home from that vacation, she said, how are you actually, how is it with your vision? And that was the point when I was dealing with the stress thing, and I was on sick leave, and I was just and I said, well. Okay, she said, and she asked me, when were you at the ophthalmologist the last time? And it was almost 7 years, so I hadn't been there for 7 years. And okay, we decided to go there, and I was examined again. And he after examining me, he looked at me and he said, "Morten, do you know that you are legally blind?" And I said, "What? No, I don't." And he said, "You have a visual field of 4 degrees, and when you have a visual field less than 10 degrees, you're actually legally blind and you have 4 degree vision. And that was when okay. And I asked him, could there be some kind of correlation between the stress and depression and the vision loss? And he said, of course, what do you do? I'm an art director working with, visualization and, imagery and making movies. And he said, whoa, you must be really, really stressed out by that. And that's when it occurred to me, oh, that was the link.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine what you went through. And there's all kinds of emotional things to unpack there that got you to that point. But I think the really great thing about your story that I want people to know is that you got to a point of being depressed and having a lot of anxiety with your work. And of course, you're dealing with losing your sight and all this stuff. But yet today, you are a motivational speaker. You've written a book called Hello, I'm looking at the screen. Yeah, I got that.
He's also stand-in for Jason Stamos.
Yeah, I know.
He looks like Jason Stamos.
Yeah, so ladies, if you're only listening, you probably want to watch because he's quite a handsome guy. But your book is called Sentenced to Blindness, Now What?, which I have ordered. It's available on Amazon or it's available at your website, which we'll tell people about later. But I can't wait to read it. So you've taken this thing. And by the way, you still work as a creative director, senior creative director at Lego. So
senior art director, yeah.
Yeah, so you've obviously figured this out, but I think that this was probably an evolution over several years as you figured this out. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to start with, when was it that things started to change in your mind and how you perceive your position in life, to say, okay, you know what? Yes, I've got this challenge, but what can I do to take it to the next level? What can I do to maximize this life I have to live?
Yeah, it was actually one very specific moment when I was at the end of 16. It was in December, 3rd of December, actually.
Wow,
I was sitting in, it was because it was a pivotal moment. I think it was. I was sitting in Denmark. We have something called a job center, and that's a place you go if you, obviously need a job, but also if you have problems that you need help. If you need something from the government or anything, they will help you. And I was challenged by my situation, and we were looking into how can I continue do what I'm doing, stay at the labor market, being, doing what I like to do. And I was sitting there around people who were talking to me about clauses and procedures and all the things that we needed to figure out. And I had this moment where I just felt that, this is really it. Now my life is over, because I could no longer do what I thought was defining me as a person. So I was this person, I was the senior art director, I was this and I was that, I was a father, I was a driver, I used to drive my sons to karate lessons and to skating halls, and I lost my right to drive a car that summer in 16, which was a huge impact. And when I was sitting there, all of a sudden I just felt, this is it. I could, just take me now. I don't care. It's like, it's the end. And when I had that moment of total surrender, it was almost like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I remember having this moment where I was just sitting there and people were talking about all these things. And I remember the voices were kind of, dimmed down. They were just almost disappearing. And then I heard this very, very loud voice in my head. And I don't think this is not like a magical thing. It was just a new voice in my head said, "What do you want out of life, Morten?" It was just like, whoa, it just hit me. And what I had realized up to this point was that I had for so many years had a voice in my head that was always talking me down. Like it was my worst enemy. My own inner dialogue was my enemy number one. It wasn't really becoming blind. It was the critical voice. Every time I made a mistake, every time I wanted to do something, I had this, nah, you're not gonna do that. You can't do that. Remember, you're blind, and you shouldn't attempt this because you're gonna be exposed. And that inner dialogue was just so much my personality. And there, that moment, it just hit me. Whoa, I have this inner voice. It's my worst enemy, and need to find out how I can change that.
You notice his inner voice has a little bit of an Australian accent. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, where the hell did the Aussie come from?
I have no idea.
Yeah, that'd be a negative inner voice. Do you hear that?
Dude, it's crazy, man. Because
you've had that.
It's so funny. Inner dialogue is one of those things that until you become aware of it, you don't even know it's there.
Exactly.
And it's funny, as an adult, I actually picked up on this. I've told this, I don't know that I've told this story on the podcast, but I told this story to many people, and I don't really care. I reached a point in my 30s when I was feeling like this incredible amount of anxiety at work, and I had no idea what it was all about. And so I'm like, I need to see a counselor. So I went to talk to a counselor because I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was getting like short of breath and stuff. And, as I started to talk to her, she's like, we really need to focus on your inner dialogue. And I'm like, well, what the hell are you talking about? She's like the things you're telling yourself. And so as we started to talk and she pulled those things out, she made me realize I was thinking things in my mind that I didn't even know I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like once she made me aware of it, she's like, I'm like, yeah, I do think that. And there is a voice in my head that says that, but I wasn't like consciously aware of it, but I was subconsciously aware of it, which is so strange. Like how the hell can you do that? But you do, I guess.
So at that moment that you had there, and thank you, you have shared that before, and it's good to hear it again, though.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be ashamed to talk about stuff like that. It's normal.
But so, Morten, when you had that negative voice, and then all of a sudden this new voice, at that moment, was it the old voice that just died completely? Do you think that, I mean, it was funeral time, and that sucker was put to bed forever, and now you got a new voice?
Yeah,
came in with a ball of fury and encouraged you, huh?
You actually, that's spot on, because in my presentation, when I give presentations, I'm still very visual, and I'm using this little tunnel hole still to create visuals, and I have this image which it's a tombstone with engravings, and it actually says 73 to 2016. Morten Bonde, here lies all Morten Bonde's identities. And then I line them up, and I actually saw at that point that all those identities, they are just like shells, like layers on an onion. And I just realized, oh my God, this is just so lyric. We are like avatars, with all the things that we train ourselves to believe in, like, our environment, our culture, whatever. That's kind of the personality that we become. At that point, I just figured out, oh my God, I lost everything. I felt dying. The Buddhists have this way, this saying that if you can die before you die, that's when you can, really start enjoying your life and be the master of your life. So I felt that at a very early age, really. So I'm so grateful for this, because that woke me up, I think.
At that point, you can start your path of enlightenment, I believe is what it, yeah. So, well, I want to put this in perspective for people. Like when you were talking about being able to see, and you see in the, a very small field of vision, and you scan things really quickly, and being an art director, I'm like, that reminds me of, because everything's pixelated these days anyway. So everything is pixels, but you remind me of like Seurat's paintings. And so when you're up really close to those paintings and you see, because he's a pointillist, and he does everything with dots, and then when so you scan it like you do, and then when you back away, all of a sudden you see this amazing picture, and your brain is doing that pretty much.
Yep. Yeah.
So did any of your other senses heighten at this point as your vision is diminishing? Yeah,
I get that question a lot, and I don't think that you actually get better hearing or smelling sense. I think you just reroute your
Just pay more attention to it.
exactly. Yeah. And I unfortunately this the variant of this retinitis pigmentosa that I have also turns off the hearing sense, you know, along with the vision. So, but I have experienced actually a smelling, you know, the ability to smell has just, whoa, it's what I can smell. And my family, you know, annoyed by it because I can always smell something. "Huh, do you smell this? No. And my wife, when we like, do you smell this? No. Like, it's so annoying for everyone. So I
I
did
smell
this.
somebody eating a ham sandwich 3 miles away, and it's I want ham.
Oh, it's cool.
And only
that you
ham
got-
sandwiches, right?
Yes.
When when did you start working for Lego?
I did that in 2009.
So you had you still had that negative self-dialogue when you started working for Lego, and then
Yeah, I think
faded away.
I think I had that always. Like, you know, that was kind of a personality that was, I don't know, you know, I don't blame anything, but I can see also patterns from my family, and you know, there's something being passed on that you kind of get programmed with at a very early age. I actually, when I had this epiphany, you could call it that, I said to myself, and you know, what's defining me? What is, you know, what is making me the person that I am? And I started getting really interested in a lot of different topics. So I started reading and you know, actually listening. I'm a subscriber to one of those book services. So I just, you know, constantly listen to audiobooks, and I started listening to books about, you know, biology and neuroscience and physics and ancient Eastern philosophies, but also ancient European philosophy. So I started just, you know, what's going on? You know, it's a crazy interest. I actually started looking into, when did civilization start to form the way that we know it, and why do we think there are certain things that are okay, right, and there are things that are not okay, and it's all about perspective. So I started getting really interested in that because I wanted to teach myself to not have this, you know, cynical view of my future, you know, not always seeing that, you know, my future will be dark, I won't be able to do anything. I wanted to see the things that I love in life and all the things that I have that are amazing, that you tend to overlook because the negative always sort of wins over the positive, because, you know, that's the way we survive, right? You know, we identify the things that can threat us, and then we focus on them instead of focusing on what it is that I want. So I wanted to teach myself to change that, and that's a very, very deep rooted, you know, trait that most people have. I've read somewhere that 70% of our thoughts, they are automatically negative. So that's what we're up against.
Yeah, I've heard that before too. And what I find interesting is what we tend to do as humans is we get so wrapped up in our lives and in our routines and things that feel normal to us that a lot of us don't take the time to ask the big questions that you're asking. Because it's really funny, you know, you can just be in your life and busy and your work and your kids, and you know, as you evolve as a person, as you grow older, a lot of people don't step back and say, what do I want out of life? And you kind of got cornered into this because you had to face it, right?
Yeah.
In some ways, that's a blessing, because I think a lot of people get way too far down the path of life before they have the chance to ask that question of themselves, and then too much time has passed for them to really become the person that they want to become, or get out of life what they really wanted.
Yeah, and I stumbled upon a book called A Man's Search for Meaning by an Austrian psychologist called Viktor Frankl, and he He was in Auschwitz at the Second World War, and he started noticing that people who had a purpose, like they had something to, they said to themselves, "I have to survive this because I need to, do this. I need to see this person. I need to." They survived, and the people who didn't have a purpose, they perished in there. And he had this quote from the book that resonated with me, and it was like, when we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that was where I was. And I said to myself, if I can't change the blindness, can I then change my perspective on the blindness? And that was that opened a dimension in my world, in my mind, that always started looking at the possibilities instead of the limitations.
Wow,
That's good.
So
But no more smashing the shuttlecock around.
he'd probably still beat you at badminton.
And
just
probably would.
saying.
He would just whip my ass on that. I'd be like, I have no idea what just happened.
I can't do it any longer. The shuttlecock just it's gone.
You'd still beat Darren though. I mean, just saying. But when did you decide to write the book? When did that become a part of your story?
Well, it became a project when, in the summer of 17, when I started. I had been researching for maybe 6 months, and I digested so many books, and I started realizing there was a pattern in there, and it was that it was an old ancient quote, and I found it all over the history. All religions had this sort of understanding. It seems to be have become lost to us, but it is you become what you think and focus on. That was just so. It resonated with me because I could see if I have this thought machine that always focuses on all my limitations, that becomes the person that I am, because that's what I focus on.
What are you doing
Sorry.
there, Darren?
I didn't realize that. I thought the sound was off. I was making sure we're live streaming. I'm so sorry. I was just making sure that we're live streaming okay on one of our platforms.
Darren's watching himself watch you live on the. What the hell are you doing?
I was just making sure that we're live. This is a really interesting story. I mean, all of our guests are great, but I'm so enamored. And I'm like, God, I hope people are watching this.
Yeah,
I think I just want to let's say skål for
Skål.
Skål.
Hey, I'm down with that.
Hey, we're drinking another
I
beer
actually
here,
switched beers. So we're drinking a beer now called Raise the Woof instead of Roof.
WOOF. I
Yes.
thought maybe you were like.
It's a
slurring
simple
already.
Pilsner. So this actually makes me think of Europe. It's a really easy Pilsner.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I have a couple of others. There's this one. This is a German. It's sort of I don't know. It's sweet, like fruity beer.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's probably not.
I've had that one before.
Have you?
Oh,
Yep.
And of course this one. I think no. I'm sorry.
Up behind the can.
I just had to.
What the hell?
Truly-
He's got a Corona.
Yuck.
Oh,
Oh, that's awesome. If you're not watching on,
I bet it tastes better over there, though.
yeah, it probably does. That's awesome, man. Yeah, so if you buy the Raise the Woof Pilsner, for every 6-pack, $1 goes to the Royal Animal Refuge. So
Ooh.
it's really cool. All right, so
That's nice.
so getting back to your story. About
Yeah, it
writing the
was-
book.
Yeah, I know one of the things that I very quickly learned, that we have this subconscious, and 95% of everything that we do is sort of run by the subconscious, the unconscious, and only 5% of the time we are really, present here, right now.
So I can't blame myself for anything that I do. It's my
Exactly.
subconscious.
No, this was
But others
actually
can
that
blame
was my that was the revelation. Instead of kicking myself for not being able to change my perspective, because I said to myself, I want to become a person who can see possibilities instead of limitations, but I couldn't do it. I kept seeing all the limitations. So I asked myself the question, why is that? And then I came across this information that 5% of the time we are conscious, and 95% of the time we're just doing what we are doing every day.
Yep.
And that means that 95% of the time we are constantly thinking. thinking. And I started realizing, I'm never really awake. So I started cultivating the ability to stay focused. So I meditate every day for at least an hour. And then I train myself in noticing always what's going on inside my body. And that sounds strange, but always kind of have a contact with the feeling in my hands or in my feet or in my legs. And listening to what's going. If I hear birds singing, I notice it while somebody's talking to me. So getting out of the head and getting into the body. And I said, this you have to do for at least 4 months, at least maybe 6 even. And then I said to myself, I'm gonna give myself a project. And the project was 4 challenges, and I write about it in the book. I said, okay, in 4 months, I'm gonna give myself 4 challenges that will challenge the negativity that I always felt I had in my head. I'm gonna challenge fear and worry. I'm gonna challenge the feeling of feeling limited. And then I'm gonna share this experience with the world. So I said, okay, I have to journal everything that I'm do for next month. And then I said something else. The sharing with the world was about, making a talk, creating a lecture. And I sent a mail to my employer, and I said, in 4 months, I would like to share with all my colleagues how I decided to become a person who can see possibilities in life instead of limitations. Sent. And I just looked at whoa, did I really send that?
I can't undo that.
Oh my God, can I take it back? I
sent an email and I'm not sure I wanted to send it.
I think
did I do it?
Home, though. I bet it hit home only because that busted your bubble. But I mean, you work for a creative company who sees endless possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's about with them. It's like, you got this box of little plastic bricks, even though they hurt like hell when you step on them in the middle of the night. But, it's endless possibilities of what you can create out of these little.
That email would have stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, I would have been like, hell yeah, you're doing it. Not only you're doing it here, but. So what happened?
Yeah, and I sent it off, and he came back to me, and he said, my boss, he said, yeah, that's great, that's awesome. And then I said, okay, now I have a mission. Now I have to be conscious every moment of the day. And then I did something else. I created it. This is a little silly, but I actually created these audio tracks for myself. It's almost like a joke, right? This is these tapes, they called it back in the 90s. Yes. Like it. But I really did that. I recorded my own voice, and I started telling myself the stories that I wanted to live by. So instead of having the voice saying, you're such an idiot, you're blind and all that, I recorded my voice saying, you are awesome, like, you are amazing, you can do this. And I literally had it in my ear for almost a month. And it really did something. It changed my automatic response to challenges, where I normally would say, no, I can't do it. And my body was sending me, deep emotions and feelings that this is off the chart, you can't do this. Then I started, creating that space between the experience that I had and the response that I was, practicing. So I had that little space of emptiness where I could make a decision. Okay, this feels like I'm gonna die. I'm gonna do it anyway. And that was the whole idea, to go up against that automatic, system that I had built up for so many years, and just try to challenge it. And I literally noticed that the more that I could challenge things that I've, that was, fearful, and the more I felt alive, and more I got this, hey, it's just so amazing. If you decide to do something and then really do it, it's just, that's the way you should live all the time.
That's how I felt when you asked me to be the co-host on this show. Just felt like a fear of dying. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta, be around Jake and go with this.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
He goes, but you're gonna get to drink beer, and I was like, oh, that's a good coping mechanism, coping tool. I could do it.
Beer, okay, I'm in.
So you started to go through. First of all, I gotta just stop and tell you how brilliant it is that you recorded yourself, because what better way to combat negative self-dialogue then when you hear that, to say, oh, hold on, put your headphones in, and you hear your own voice saying, you're just knocking that back, saying, you got this.
Yeah.
You're amazing. Let's go.
Phil Hartman and what was that character he did? Stu Smalley or something?
Oh,
And
on
he looked at
SNL.
himself in the mirror and, gosh darn it, people like me. You know, he had that, but he had that positive self dialogue-ish kind of thing going. So,
But it's very real, and you know that. I think the first thing you're talking about consciousness, just kind of breaking this down. So often we don't recognize that voice is there, and what we do, rather than acknowledge that there's negative self dialogue going on, we just feel the net feeling afterwards, which can just blow the wind right out of the sails of your motivation. You know, it's like, oh, I just feel terrible and I don't want to do anything. But you are now recognizing that, oh, there's that negative dialogue. Let's throw the headphones in and hear something else from the same guy.
it's awesome.
And yeah, I think that's super brilliant. So
Yeah,
you went
and
through this. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it was, there's, when we are children, up to the age of 7,
Or in Darren's case, in your 50s.
Exactly. Oh, sorry. That was too quickly.
That's good.
It's like
about
the
time.
shuttlecock in badminton. If it comes at me slowly, I'm swinging.
Yeah. The good thing
know-
is he jumped on board finally.
I know he's with us now.
There.
The way that we learn when we are at the age of 0 to 7 is in a state of hypnosis. When we measure brainwave activities, and how do I know this? I'm not a scientist, whatever. I just read a lot of stuff, and I kind of internalized it, and I said, okay, I'm in order for me to understand this, I have to be able to teach this to people. So okay, I really dived into all this. So the first 7 years, we have a brain wave activity. When we measure that with EEGs, these devices you can put on your brain or on your head, we measure what we call theta brainwaves and alpha brainwaves. And theta brainwaves are what we measure in grown-ups when they are in a state of hypnosis. And what's important here is that we know from children they can learn something really, really fast. They can learn several languages, and they just they're like sponges until the age of 7, and then something starts happening with the brain. We get what we call beta brainwaves, and they are very fast brainwaves, and they are the analytical mind, the mind that always judges things and says, this can do this, and we can calculate things, and we can have ambitions and motivations and all that. And when we reach that level of brainwave activity, we have to learn through repetition. And that's why we know when we learned to drive the first time, it was just so stressful, like this pedal and this handle, and you have to look at this. It's just so difficult because you have to do it again and again and again. And I started making a connection there. Okay, if I tell myself the same story that I want to see it happen in my life, I just have to do that again and again and again and again until it becomes sort of a program, like a subconscious program that starts automatically. So that was the experiment, and it was really I died in 16, so I could I had a new life in front of me. So I started just saying, I'm not attached to anything. Everything that people say, oh, this is nonsense. I think it sounds interesting. I'll look into it. I have no judgment about anything. So that opened me up to, knowledge and, wisdom that I didn't believe in, or I found silly, pre-16. And now I just said, well, let me check it out. Let's have a look at it and see if it makes sense for me. And it really did make sense. So the whole process was about training myself to be automatically able to say, whoa, yes, let's see what that is, let's go there, instead of always rejecting things and declining and saying no.
Yeah, I'm really excited to read the book, and I'm going to encourage everybody to buy it, and we'll give some links on where to get it later on. But one of the things I want to talk to you about was, you obviously wrote the book, and that was a process, and you give, speeches and presentations on your journey and the things that you've learned. And one of the things that I picked up on your website is that, one of the things you like to impart in people is to live and to live every moment. And I'm just curious, like, what are when you're talking to people, what are the secrets that you tell them to just enjoy it and to live it and be in the moment?
I think I think when the people ask me where do I start, I think it starts by starting to, being able to really experience this moment. This exact moment right now is where you live, and it's the only time you live is right now. And so and that sometimes that hits people like, what, the mind doesn't get it, because our minds are able to travel in time. We can live all our life in the future or all our life in the past without noticing, and we just like this automatic beings that walk around. It's like we never really realize that right now I'm sitting here having this experience in this moment.
Yeah.
So if you're never there, you won't be able to realize what it is that you want for the next moment and the next moment, because all the decisions you make right now is going to determine your life, because the life is right now. And when that started really to hit me, I was just, whoa, I've been living my whole life unconsciously, because I was just always looking for the next thing and preparing for the next thing and wondering about what was happening in the past, why did I do this, and what will happen tomorrow. And we're not living like that. So when I tell people to pay attention to the leaves on the road,
Take time to stop and smell the roses, right?
It sounds silly, and that's sometimes it's actually kind of a joke, because this is cliches in a way, but cliches are cliches for a reason. It's because they've been repeated so many times, and we have this tendency, that's not cool to say. And when I say smell the flowers, like, that's strange, and I'll get, so I just I don't care. I know that we only live right now in this exact moment.
I think that you've seen the movie Up.
Yes.
Right. And
Yep.
Up, there's Doug, the dog, and he has those squirrel moments. And that's what life should be. That's what it reminds me of. So Doug understands it. It's like squirrel. It's like, oh my gosh, there's something amazing over there. I'm going to take the time. I can come back and stay on our main path here, but I'm going over there. I'm going to check that shit out. And oh boy, I had a lot of fun. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I fell in a hole and got all muddy, but I still had, I took the chance and I went and experienced that. And then I can come back and do the day-to-day mundane, as you said, the autonomous stuff.
Well, it's actually really profound the way that you put it too. The only moment that you have is now. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, even 5 minutes ago is a very, very, piercing memory, because it's right there, but it already passed. It's done. And then we live so much of our life thinking about the future, planning the future, where we're going, and living in the past, the things that were really nice. And, the past is gone. So, that ship has sailed. In the future, well, how dare you assume that you're going to get it? You might fall down the stairs right now and not get 10 minutes.
Yeah, I could have another beer. I'm assuming I'm going to have another beer when this one's empty.
But enjoy the one you have now, because it's the one.
That's the point. Yeah, enjoy this one.
Mm-hmm.
It is really profound. And as Darren said, there's a lot of cliched sayings about being in the moment, but it's really true. And I think anybody listening can be really guilty of it. And where I relate this to business a lot is, as entrepreneurs, we get caught up in this so much because we're always building. And as one of the things that many entrepreneurs share is vision. Like, oh, I see something, I see an opportunity, and I want to go there. I have a plan on how I can go from where I'm at today to building a business and doing that thing out in the future. And we become so focused on getting there that we don't enjoy the journey getting there, which the problem is I've always enjoyed it too late.
Yeah.
I've always gotten to this point, like, you look back on the memories like, man, that was a really good time. That was amazing. Why the hell was I so stressed out and not enjoying it?
Yeah.
Because I was too focused on where I was going to appreciate what was happening right then and there in that moment with those people that I was doing it with.
I sit there, I look at that, I look around, here, I'll be in the office. I just take a minute and look around and watch everybody who's working and milling around and doing whatever. And I'm like, this is why I built this place.
Yeah.
So take it in and enjoy. These people now they're here working. They're having a fun time. Usually. When I'm not here, they're having a much better time because they don't have to deal with my sarcasm. But that's true, and we have that. Even the moments with your family are the same way. It's like, oh, I'm busy. I got to do this. And it's like, but if you turn around and give your kids 10, 15 minutes,
yeah,
is it going to make a difference on that other thing that you think is more important? No. The moment you're going to remember is that one that you had with your kids.
Yeah, and I think what else is interesting about this, Morten, is I've heard people talk about this before, but I don't know that I've ever heard anybody put it as poignantly as you did, which is the only moment you have is now. I don't even know that necessarily means you need to slow down or that you can't have a lot going on, but just to appreciate where you're at and figure out ways to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, and I think that this is what ancient philosophers have pointed at for generations, for millennia, that there is only this moment, and it has become sort of a mind thing. When people say it like live in the moment, but it's never really understood because we use our mind. It was the French philosopher René Descartes in 1600 whatever that he said, I think, therefore I am. It sort of became. Yeah. It sort of became, the thinking is what make us who we are. But thoughts are just like an ability that we have, but we kind of overuse that ability because it's thoughts are just totally have totally obsessed our minds. So you should actually think when you need to think, and then you shouldn't think any longer. And I know modern psychologists and they say we have thoughts and we have them all the time, but I think it's become just normal to think all the time. And when you have those moments where you just recognize that I am in this life, in this place, this exact place that I'm at, the way that I learned that was because I couldn't drive any longer. I had to wait 30 minutes for the bus, and in the beginning I had this inner voice saying, oh, this is you're waiting in this place, and why don't you have a car, and why did you lose your sight? And I gave myself the first challenge was I call it my stop swap thought month. For 30 days, I had to notice every time my inner voice would say, oh, this is shitty, and this is, and then I had to say, stop, swap thought. And that's awareness. Now I'm in the now. And then I had to say, okay, what's the good thing about this? And I started noticing that I was waiting all the time. And I said, oh, no, I'm not waiting. I'm just living right now. I can breathe here. I can breathe at home. It doesn't really matter. So I said, okay, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to notice things. I'm going to watch. I'm just going to be here. And I started experiencing that time disappeared on me. And just all of a sudden the bus was there. I started by, looking at the watch like every 10 seconds. And I had this idea if I just watched the watch like every 10 minutes, it would come, but it's a silly thing to do. So I started to say, okay, I can't affect anything by looking at my watch, so I might just be here in this moment. And again, there's a pattern here. You have to live it. You can't read a book about it and then, oh, I get it. No, you have to live it. You have to become it. And that's also what all the wise philosophers and sages have said for thousands of years. You have to become it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Swap thought.
Stop.
Swap
thought.
I like that.
SST.
Either way, I'll remember the words, not the acronym. I know you were trying to dumb it down for me and make it simpler, but
It
can't be much more simple than that, I think.
Right.
Yes.
SST I would forget.
Yes.
But stop.
But you remembered it. Oh,
stop.
Not that.
Yes, I think that's awesome. And so often I think it's important and imperative that we do that because, as you said, 70% of our thoughts are negative. And I think that's just, our survival instinct, we are pre-programmed to identify threat. And so often in this life, that manifests itself in thinking negative thoughts about something that really could be a very blessed moment in your life, but you just have to figure out how to think differently about it, ignore the bad voices and take it in and, figure out what it is in that moment that is going to bring you joy.
You've overcome that fear factor when you have to podcast with me every week and be in a room with me for like an hour and a half. I could see the fear on your face when we started, and
the only difference
you've learned to cope with that.
The only difference is the really bad voice, Morten. It's not in my head. It's that one right there.
It's sitting right. But you can. Well, the good thing is you can identify it and you can get rid of it.
And I can put headphones on and mute him.
Exactly.
Yeah. I would like to go back to one thing that you said when you were talking about the theta waves from children, and then the beta waves kick in at about the age of 7. And it is so true with children, because children know how to live in the moment. They don't know the negative, and the negative comes from the parents and everyone else who's around them.
Well, I think to simplify it, it's environmental.
It is.
It's not internal.
They say the best salespeople are little kids, because they don't take no for an answer, right? They just they will keep coming back, and they'll grind you down with the same question. They will just wear you down until you're like, fine, whatever, just you can eat the whole gallon of ice cream. I don't care. But they, you learn that as a child, and then it is the environment. It's the people who you constantly hear, you can't do that. You're going to get yourself hurt. You can't. Yeah. And while those theta waves are still going on, they're like, bullshit, I can't. I can keep trying. I'll just figure out another way to do it until, as best they can. And then when you said the brain starts switching over and the analytical side kicks in when they're 7, now those things that they've been hearing start to have that. I think that negative voice comes in. You can't do that. No, you're not allowed. And instead of that positive encouragement, it's like, hey, I'd love you to experience this, but maybe you want to try it this way instead. That's, don't put the fork directly into the outlet, but if you want to know what electrocution feels like, here's a 9-volt battery, lick on it, and let's go
Work your way up.
Yeah. So that's important, and what you're doing is you're helping people with your thought processes, and like the stop swap thought, to retrain the brain. And that's almost like trying to take you back to that time when we had those theta waves kicking.
Yeah, this is neuroplasticity. There was a time when we said the brain is what it is; it can't be changed. And in recent years, they rediscovered that the brain is just moldable. It's like if you stop training an ability, it will prune away. It will disappear. And if you start doing something very much, you create pathways, and that's that's what I realized. And I said, let's play with that. There are no demands. It was just an experiment, and that took all the stress out of it. It's like, this is a fun experience, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna enjoy it, and let's see what happens with it.
I think the key here is, so many times you'll hear somebody that's got some sort of challenge in their life, whether it's the way that they behave, or the way that they think about themselves, or the way they think about situations, or whatever. And so many times people accept it. Well, that's who I am. That's how I am. Yeah. And the brain can be molded. It can be exercised. You can change those things. You just have to figure out how to tap into it, how to be fully present, and to do a lot of the things that you talked about with meditation and just being fully present. So I'm really excited to read your book. I can't wait to do it. I want to encourage everybody else to do so. And Morten, you also do public speaking and presentations. So I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you. If you're watching right now, you can see the website. It is Morten Bonde, or as I would say, Bond or Bondi.
Yeah,
Bonde. Bonde. It is MORTENBONDE.DK, because you're in Denmark, /EN, because we speak English. Or if that's way too much for you to remember, you can see it on the screen. Or if you're listening on any podcast platform right now, it's in your show notes. Just go to the show notes. You'll see the link and click on it. And, book Morten to come speak at your next event because he's awesome. And buy his book. We don't really force stuff on you, but this one, you need to go buy it. I'm really excited to read
It actually exists also as an audiobook. I decided to do that. So I narrated the audiobook, and I have, the fun thing in the book, there are some characters in there. They call them the Letterman, and I won't the Letterman, and I won't disclose too much of it. But they have several different voices, and there's a point to this. There's something that you can't. I'm not telling about it in my talks and anywhere else than in the book, because it's something you have to realize when you read the book about those Lettermen, and that's the journey that I invite people to go on when they.
Man, I love
there
it.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm so stoked to read it, man. And I'm going to encourage you guys to do it. And if you don't want to go to the website to buy it directly, you can get it on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So all you got to do is go to Amazon and search for "Sentenced to Blindness," and you'll see Morten's book come right up. And man, we wish you all the luck in the world. And I did want to read something. We had a comment come in, and I wanted to share this with you. Robert Murray said, "Bless this gentleman, and we think we have problems." So,
oh, that's nice.
I know you've touched many people around the world today, so we really appreciate you coming on the show. And yeah, man. And now you've challenged me to find a beer that I've never drank. So hold the can up one more time.
You haven't had Tuborg?
I have not.
Really? You lived up in Ohio? We used to cross that. Yeah, Tuborg. There it is.
Yeah.
Tuborg Classic.
I'm gonna find one.
We used to drink that crossover. You can buy it in Canada before.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to find one of those. Well, Morten, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. We've learned a ton from you. Can't wait to read the book. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week.
See you.